welcome to another session of looking at the spine and yoga. Today, we will revise a little bit of what we have been understanding on the spine. One is that the spine is not just the bones, the spine includes the vertebrae, 33 vertebrae, 26 bones, 31 pairs of spinal nerves. It has the vertebral arteries, the vertebral veins, it has lymphatics, and very, very importantly, something that I'm going to focus on a little more today is the intervertebral disc. The intervertebral disc is basically something like a sponge. So just keep in mind something like a sponge, and then you'll have a good mental image of a intervertebral disc. So these intervertebral discs, they are specialized tissue that lie in between the vertebra. You have the next vertebra, these two big things, and in between you have a disc. So you have something that comes in between here. For example, say I put this here, okay, just to give you an idea. So imagine you have one vertebra, you have the second vertebra, in between you have this disc, and this is actually what it looks like if you think about it. Okay? So this disc that lies between the two vertebrae is a very vital component because it enables movement to occur freely between the vertebrae. Now, when we look at the rest of the body, you have multiple joints. The joints are amazing. Like I was just telling Anandraj yesterday, the number of bones and joints just in your one hand. You have the carpals, you have all the metacarpals, fine. Then you have the phalanges 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 14, 19. You have at least 26, 27 bones in just this. With that many joints, so what happens is you have a lot of dexterity. There can be a lot of things you can be doing. That is where the power of mudra comes in. So many things you can be doing with this. Now, the spine is not like that because the vertebrae are just one on top of the other, and that is why there's a very limitation of movement present between one vertebra and the other. There is a great limitation of movement between one vertebra and the other, and that is why when you see a spinal movement, it is the result of a whole lot. The spinal movement is the result of a whole lot of action occurring across the whole spine. So when we bend forward, when we bend back, there's a little bit of movement at each one. So L1, L2 has a little movement, L2, L3 has a little movement, and this adds to you getting that flexion or extension of the spine. Whatever movement you do of the spine, forward bending, backward bending, it is a combination of all of these small movements put together. Now, each movement contributes to the bigger. So if these smaller movements are not working as they should, the bigger movement suffers and you start to have a spine that doesn't have malleability, doesn't have flexibility, doesn't have turn ability. Many years ago, a former vice chancellor at Pondicherry University, Professor Jnanam, he was a great supporter of the work being done through yoga, especially for senior citizens. And a very wonderful man, Professor Jnanam, he used to attend the yoga sessions for the senior citizens, the silver yoga as we call it now. And he, at the end of one of the training programs, we had a valedictory, and he gave a speech and he said, people talk about yoga and flexibility. He said, I would like to say that yoga gives us, especially the elderly people, turn ability. And he explained, he said, normally what is happening is with age, we become more and more fixed in the spine. Also up here, we become more fixed. That's a different issue. But we become more fixed in the spine to such an extent that If you want to turn to the right, you turn like this. And if somebody calls you on the left, you have to turn completely like this. What is happening is you have to turn your whole body because you cannot just turn your head or the torso anymore. Turn ability has gone down with aging. And what he said was yoga gives us back this turn ability, which means a very beautiful free flow movement of the whole spine, which happens when each of these joints is moving as it should. So the intervertebral discs are a vital component because they are between each of the vertebrae, allowing for this free flow of movement to occur in all the directions. So for example, when you are twisting, this is happening, or when you are bending forward or when you are bending back, all the movements that are happening across the spine, hmm, you know the different movements that are happening, twisting or bending forward, bending back, all of this, the intervertebral discs are a vital component. And what happens is these intervertebral discs start to degenerate. Earlier, we saw the degeneration happening when people were above 50. Nowadays, you find the degeneration even in the 20s. And people come in and you look at the spine at the age of 20, 22, 23, and degeneration has already started because of improper posture, faulty sitting, and faulty carrying of the load, including the young school children who are being made compulsory to carry these huge loads of books. A kid who's 30, 40 kilos is carrying a load of 15, 20 kilos to school back and forth. Imagine what will happen to the spine. The intervertebral discs are like sponges. Now, anybody who has worked with any sponge, in your kitchen or any place, you will know that a sponge is strong when it is wet. A sponge is strong when it's wet, and it is weak when it is dry, dehydrated. So hydration, which means having the adequate optimal level of water, is the key to intervertebral disc health. So if you want your intervertebral discs to be healthy, you need to be hydrated. And to be hydrated, 2 to 3 liters of water per day spread over the whole day, unless you have a kidney disorder which is preventing you from managing fluid, and then you have to reduce it. 2 to 3 liters of water per day. What it does is enables the intervertebral discs to be hydrated. And an hydrated sponge, even Samson, if he were to come, he would have trouble tearing it apart. Even Hanumanji would struggle with a wet sponge. It is so strong. Yet a dry sponge, even the smallest of kids, smallest of babies, could take in the hand and just crush to pieces the same sponge. When hydrated, the strongest person will struggle to break it. When dehydrated, even the youngest, smallest, weakest person could be able to break it. What is the difference between that? Hydration. Your spine is the same. So the intervertebral discs, if they are hydrated, what happens is they swell. And this is a dehydrated disc. This is a hydrated disc. You see my finger? This is the dehydrated disc. This is the hydrated disc. So when the disc is hydrated, what happens? There's adequate space between your vertebrae. So the movement of the vertebrae can be much, much more easily done. And the overall movement will be greater because you have added centimeter to centimeter across all those joints. Every joint you have added, even if you add 1 centimeter across each one, that's 30 centimeters of change. If you add half a centimeter, 15 centimeter of change, 0.25 centimeter, well, you still have a lot. So the whole idea here is, oh, it's not just about what if my discs are dehydrated, what does it matter? It matters a lot because, first of all, your whole height suffers, the extent of movement suffers, and then these bones which are held apart by the intervertebral disc, they start to ram against each other, and you start to have what is called degenerative arthritis, osteoarthritis of the spine. And what happens is parts of the spine start to rub against each other. They start to come closer. And on the X-ray, what you find, a report, you will say reduced intervertebral disc space. Reduced intervertebral disc space. What does that mean? The space between the vertebrae has reduced, which means your intervertebral disc is dehydrated, is compressed, and is not able to function as it should. Whereas if you increase the space, it means the disc is working, it is having hydration, and is keeping the vertebrae apart. And it is astonishing that over the years I have seen thousands of reports of people with back problems, and they have an MRI scan done, magnetic resonance imaging. And this magnetic resonance imaging, MRI scan, when they bring the report, you look at the report and it will say dehydrated intervertebral disc. The discs are dehydrated. This is the exact word in the report. And then I ask the person who has come to me, the patient, some people call them clients, and politically correct nowadays is care seeker, whatever. The person who has come to me, the individual who has come to me, I say, your report says your discs are dehydrated. How many experts have you been to? They'll say usually 6, 7. Spinal issues, by the time they come to yoga, most probably they have had at least 5 to 8 consultations with different experts. And I asked them, has any one expert asked you to drink more water? And they look at me as if I'm mad. Yes, Dr. Ananda is mad. They look at me and they wonder, what's this guy talking about? I say, has any one of those experts asked you to drink more water? And the answer is always no. Now you tell me, as an individual with common sense, I know it's not so common, if you find a term dehydration in a report, doesn't it make sense to ask the person to hydrate themselves? They would have been suggested surgery, they would have been suggested all sort of physiotherapeutic modules, physical therapies, they would have been suggested blah, 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 blah. And not one person would have suggested to them the most common sense, logical suggestion, which is, please be hydrated, which means take more water. And the moment the person starts to drink adequate amount of water, 2 to 3 liters, over a span of 10 days to 2 weeks, at least 50% of the symptoms and the signs go down. The person feels much better, the pain goes down, the flexibility comes back. Just 10 days to 2 weeks of drinking adequate amount of water. As I suggested yesterday, you could add some electrolytes to it, that would also be good. So never forget that spinal health requires hydration. The second thing it requires is, if you have a degeneration, you need to regenerate. So degeneration, you have to combat it by regeneration. For regeneration, the practices help. But along with the practices, you need to make sure you are hydrated. You need to make sure you have adequate vitamins and minerals. Because it is the vitamins and the minerals that enable regeneration to happen. It is like calling the engineer and saying, repair my wall. He says, wonderful, I know how to do it. You say, go ahead. He says, I need some bricks, I need some cement, I need some sand, I need some water. And you're like, well, don't you know how to do it? He knows how to do it. He can do it, but he needs the raw materials to help rebuild your wall. If you want to rebuild your spine and attain and regain spinal health, you need the raw materials, water, that is hydration, vitamins and minerals. All the vitamins are good here, especially vitamin C, because vitamin C helps in collagen formation, which means that in the healing process, the rebuilding process, vitamin C is very good, and also it is good for immunity. That is as part of what we are going through in the world today. The other thing is calcium. So you need adequate amount of calcium, otherwise your bones are not going to heal themselves. So calcium should be part of your diet. If for some reason you cannot take it in your diet, you can take a supplement. But remember, the diet is always the superior one. The supplement is always going to have an issue of you overdosing yourself if you are not careful. My father used to talk about orange juice. And he said the problem is normally you would eat 2 oranges at a time at the most. But in 1 cup of orange juice, you have 6 oranges. Now, what you have done is you have loaded on your system an abnormal amount of resource. So, either it's just going to get washed out when you go to the toilet, or you are going to go in for toxicity and side effects, because most of the vitamins, especially the fat soluble vitamins, you could actually have potentially serious side effects from an overdose. The water soluble, most of the time, will get just get washed out. The B vitamins and the C and all will get washed out, but it's a waste, and you have just loaded your system with it. So, keeping this in mind, hydration, vitamins, minerals, and then the practices like crawling around. So, let's get crawling and see what we can do with ourselves today. Crawling around a bit, using the chance to get all your joints moving in a very nice way, a healthy way. Making sure you're crawling using all those joints of your body. Virtually every joint getting used when you do this. Always feels good to crawl around. Reminds us of when we were small kids, not too many worries in life. Hmm? Just to get it out of us, all our emotionality, a bit of ah, huh? Ah, or or your meow, or yeah, bah, or moo, huh? Or hee haw. You can do all your stuff and get it out. Then coming into our Chatushpada, balancing on the four. And once you have got the balance, make sure you have a nice sense of balance there. It should be a sense of stability. When the body has stability, the mind has stability. When the body has stability, the emotions have stability. Okay? So breathing out, as you breathe in the lower back, the middle back, and then lifting the head up. As you breathe out, the lower back going up, middle back, and then the head coming down. Breathing in low, mid, and high. Breathing out low, mid, and high. Breathing in low, mid, and high. Breathing out low, mid, and high. Breathing in low, mid, and high. Breathing out low, mid, and high. Breathing in low, mid, and high. Breathing out low, mid. Really nice. Now, let us stretch forward, okay? I hope all of you are doing it well. Huh? We are doing it for ourselves, not for somebody else. So, placing your hands in front and just bringing your head down, giving a nice stretch across the whole spine. You can walk your hands a bit if you want. A beautiful stretch in the Shashanka. Shasha means to stretch. You are stretching the whole limb, Shashanka. A very healthy, beautiful stretch. When you give a good stretch like that in the Shashanga, Shasha means to stretch and Anga is the limb. When you stretch yourself like that in a very beautiful way, it's a stretch where you are working on the isometric more than isotonic. What happens is that you are actually going to be inducing a very beautiful sense of relaxation in your muscles, because the contractile response of the muscle, basically when it contracts it's tense, and when it's stretched it's relaxed. So when you have the sustained stretch over a period of time, you actually induce some very good relaxation in the muscles, which also enables the flow of blood and other, sort of rehabilitative regenerative substances to your spine. So giving your spine a nice stretch, just giving a beautiful stretch. This could be done from any sitting posture, but here we're just doing it from the Vajrasana. A healthy stretch. I'm so enjoying that stretch, I don't even want to come back out. Huh? Feels so good. Anyway, now another thing we can do for the back, especially on the lower back, is something called the Setu. Now, the Setu is a very beautiful practice, and it basically means a bridge. For example, in Tamil Nadu, down at Rameshwaram, we have what is called Rama Setu. It is the bridge built by Lord Rama. And legend has it that Rama got down there and wanted to cross the sea to Lanka to bring back Sita. And so he built a bridge using his army. Lot of metaphors there, lot of other cultural concepts there. A setu means a bridge, setu. Now, here what we are doing is that we have a very beautiful bridge in the lower spine. When you lie down, the lumbar area, even when you're lying in Shavasana, you find that that is the area that doesn't really touch the ground because of that C curvature. So it's like a small bridge there. What we want to do is strengthen that bridge, that lumbar area. And this is an excellent practice for people who have lumbago and lower back pain. So what we do is that we lie down, and when we lie down, we are lying down so that this area, the lower back, is going to be flat. Okay, now see here you have the curvature, that C curvature. But if I bend my knees, the moment I bend my knees, I change that, and now my back actually is flat to the ground. So if you stretch your knees, you'll find that the curvature is there, and the lower part of your back goes up into that C, like if you lie down in Shavasana. But the moment I bend my knees and bring my heels close to my gluteals, what happens is that I have flattened the curvature. We are talking about flattening the curve these days. Yeah, here you flatten the curve by bringing your knees closer. Okay? And what we do here is a very simple practice. You can place your hands by the side, and as we breathe in, we lift up. So the concept is the lower back. We are lifting up the lower back as we breathe in, and we are lowering the lower back as we breathe out. A very simple practice here, where as you breathe in, you are lifting up, and as you breathe out, you're lowering. Let's do a few rounds of this. Hope you are with me. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just relax your feet. You can shake your feet a bit if you want, giving a good shake and letting go of any tensions that may have come up. This practice, the Setu Kriya, is an excellent practice for the lower back, especially people who have lumbago and the lower back strain. You remember we were talking about all those sumo wrestlers, the lumbar vertebrae down at the base of your spine? Yes, this takes the pressure off them. And it is an excellent practice to take the pressure off the lumbar vertebrae. And you are giving a very beautiful sense of restoring a normal curvature. You remember we talked about the double S, the C-shaped curvature, the 4 C's that make a double S in your spine. We are losing that curvature. So these are practices. The Setu Kriya is a practice where you can restore the curvature. And by doing so, you are enhancing the health of that area, an area that's constantly under pressure, everything from above coming down and landing on the lumbar vertebrae. Now, another thing here is when you're doing this, you're moving with the breath. The moment you do a physical movement of the body with the breathing, you are creating psychosomatic harmony, which is an anti stress. So, any practice where you move the body in tune with the breathing, it is a psychosomatic harmonizing technique and it is an anti stress technique. So, this becomes an anti stress technique. It relaxes the body and mind. It brings the body and mind together through the breath. The breath is the medium for the body and the mind. Annamaya and Manomaya coming together with the Pranamaya. That is a way that you can understand it. The other thing, when you're focusing your mind there, wherever the mind goes, the energy goes. Yato mana tata prana. I think anyone who knows me would have memorized this because I say it thousands of times. And my goal is maybe 1,000,000 times in my lifetime. Yato mana tato prana. Wherever your mind goes, the energy flows. So when you're doing this and you are focusing your mind on the lower back, you are enabling the prana to flow into the lower back, and prana shakti is the rejuvenating, healing energy. So not only the physical movement, not only the breath, not only the body and mind, but energetically you're giving an opportunity for healing, the empowerment of self-healing. And I'm going to repeat that because it's a good phrase. Empowering self-healing through such focused body and breath work. This is where yoga as a therapy, yoga chikitsa, has to have mindfulness. It is not somebody doing it for you. In physiotherapy, physical therapy, often you have a physical therapist doing it for you. A yoga therapist cannot do it for you. The yoga therapist, ideally, should enable you to do it for yourself and empower the individual. This is a very important component. So the Setu Kriya, it is a Kriya because it is a movement and it is a systematic, rational movement. In the Gita-nanda tradition, a Kriya is defined as a systematic, rational movement. So it is done systematically, it is done with a purpose, and it is done with a movement. And this will always have the breathing and the moving in harmony. So Setu Kriya is an excellent practice for the lower back. Keep yourself hydrated so that the intervertebral discs, those sponges are so strong that even Samson and even Hanumanji cannot tear them apart. And just remember, vitamins and minerals are essential for rebuilding your spine if it is damaged. We'll keep this going on. We have had today's the 4th session on the spine and yoga. If you have missed the previous sessions, you can watch them on Facebook or you can go on YouTube, the Yognath 2001 account, where I'm trying to keep them also there for those who are not on Facebook to share through YouTube, because sharing is caring. I care about you, and that is why I'm sharing. So keep sharing, keep caring. Love you all.